A Reddit user once issued a challenge. Write 5,000 words about volcano pussy melt your Peter like ice. I, an astute song lyric analyst, felt that this was a task that, while daunting, would be worth my precious time. I have never wasted a second of time in my life, and a project of this magnitude would provide a detailed outlook into the lyrical skills of Stephen Burnett on a level never explored before. This is certainly a complex line, and a lot of thought was put into it. Therefore, I pulled no punches and gave it my best shot. This was my result. I now present to you the lyrical prowess of Death Grips' I Want It, I Need It, Death Heated, by Indivisible. A reading by Indivisible. Volcano pussy, melt your Peter like ice. These 7 words, spoken by Stephen Burnett, frontman of California experimental hip-hop group Death Grips, hold a lot of power and a multitude of hidden meanings. There is an immense amount of possibilities right behind this statement, but one could miss it if they don't pay the proper attention. As with many genius lines in hip-hop's history, such as Daveed Diggs of Clipping's famous hook, "Get Money," this particular gem is surrounded by many other lyrics and rhymes. Despite the other highly complex lines in the song, this line exclusively contains so much sheer power and weight in its use that it is made clear that this is the hook of the song. As is evident from Burnett, also commonly known by his stage name MC Ride's post-ex-military releases, this one line took so much pondering and deep reflection that the resulting mental exhaustion took a toll on his lyrical quality, as no Death Grips lyrics since this line have showcased such rhetorical prowess, and have all been subpar as a result. Each word in this phrase is placed in an almost astronomically perfect location, and every syllable is delivered in a level of pronunciation and intensity that is historically unprecedented. Down to the letter, nay, down to each individual serif. This combination of letters and lack of punctuation creates a subatomic insight into the thought processes and evolution of human thinking. The only way to thoroughly analyze this line and meet the lyrical standards set forth by its mere utterance, one must pick apart each word and its unique role in the phrase. The word volcano carries many different meanings when attempting to comprehend this masterpiece of verbal contortion. Volcanoes, which are known for being massive mounds of igneous rock that can spew molten rock at any time, have been traced to the origins of the gods of some cultures, such as the Hawaiian goddess Pele. Another notable god whose existence is tied to volcanoes is Kagatsuchi, whose birth killed his mother, which was the catalyst for his father dismembering his body and spreading the carnage to create volcanoes. Volcanoes can also be found either above or below the ocean. Some volcanoes rise high into the sky for all to see, and some volcanoes are so far below the ocean's surface that they receive no sunlight. Perhaps Ride is referring to the pussy as a volcano because it is enormous, all-encompassing, and may or may not ejaculate molten lava from depths comparable to the Earth's core. Perhaps he is saying that the pussy is so important that it creates gods, and those gods might, in turn, present the pussy with a fiery, excruciatingly painful demise. Another potential explanation is that the pussy is so deep that no amount of light will see the end of it, or the fish residing therein. Yet another implication made by this statement is that the pussy is at a very high temperature. Possibly it means that the pussy is currently in a state of arousal, and the blood flowing through it is causing its overall body temperature to rise. Then again, if the pussy melts something due to its heat, it is assumed that it is abstractly hot, to the point of being a danger to all who may enter it. It is unclear whether or not the pussy is made of igneous rock. Ride's choice of the term pussy brings new light to the volcanic reference in the first section of this phrase. Pussy may be referring to either a feline, in which case it would be a colloquialism for a pussycat, or a human vagina, or a non-human vagina, as vaginas are rather common among mammals. While it may be an obvious choice amongst the three, all possibilities must be explored in order to fully understand how much of an impact this statement has on society and culture. Assuming that the pussy is an actual feline, the original context, that of the pussy being compared to a volcano, concurs that the pussy is a flaming cat formed from igneous rocks. This cat may also excrete molten rock in some manner, which depends on the anatomy and sentience of said volcano pussy. This unworldly being melts human body parts, in this case one's Peter, as if they were made of ice. It is either melting human body parts, or Mr. Burnett is referring to a pet or possession one would refer to as a Peter. Either way, this raises several possibilities for the desired message of this line. It could be a warning, as if to say, beware of the volcano pussy, it will melt your Peter as if it were made of ice. It may also be a direct statement of a fact. Volcano pussy melts your Peter like ice. whether or not it is currently happening. The next potential meaning of this statement implies that the volcanic entity in question is, in fact, a vagina. Going with the first two possibilities, that the pussy belongs to a human female, we can discover a variety of clues that point to the meaning of this statement. The pussy is allegedly hot, which can mean either in terms of sexual arousal or in terms of physical heat. The explanation that the pussy is solely hot from the act of intercourse or future occurrence thereof does not fully consider the rest of the line, "Melt your Peter like ice." So this can be easily ruled out. If referring to physical heat, the pussy has the potential to cause, in some cases, fatal damage to anything it touches, and this also includes the owner of said pussy. One can assume that Ride means this as a warning to any potential suitor of the owner of the pussy in question. On the other hand, the pussy might be a critical part in Ride's life, as volcanoes are massive and tend to have an impact on those in its vicinity. If Ride is so afraid of the pussy due to its destructive potential, it was an unwise choice to hide that information in so cryptic a puzzle, so this can be ruled out. Likely, Ride could be making an allusion to how deep the pussy is, as many volcanoes are submerged far beneath the ocean. Scientists theorize that at least 80% of volcanic eruptions occur underwater. Either the pussy is deep in a physical sense, or at least far enough to where no sunlight would reach it. In essence, where the sun don't shine. Or the pussy is a deep concept which can melt the brain, also known as the Peter, of any who dare to attempt to study it. The pussy could also be a spiritual or mythological illusion, such as with the Japanese legend of Ainu and Shinto, in which a young woman's vagina, pussy, was harboring a demon that would castrate men who entered her with their penises. Another potential meaning for Peter. Demons, culturally, are from either a very dark or very fiery place, and volcanoes fit the bill for both descriptions. Volcanoes are, for one thing, made of volcanic rock, such as obsidian, which are famous for their dark coloring and porous appearance, which creates a more rough, matte surface, excluding the small percentage of reflective igneous rock in comparison to non-reflective igneous rock. The demon ate men's phallic members, and thus they were removed, which could loosely be tied to the phrase, "melt your Peter like ice." Again, a Peter may be referring to one's penis, given the correct context. If, to establish a case for the potential meaning of the word pussy, Ride is referring to the vagina of a non-human mammal, such as a dog or a horse, there may be a few cases in which this poetic line is taking a new spin on the term "in heat." When an animal's mating season comes around, it enters a state of frequent, if not constant, sexual desire. In the case of species that don't partake in intercourse for recreational pleasure, this provides context for the explanation that the volcano pussy, that is, melting your Peter like ice, is a distant implication to that of a living creature's natural instinct to reproduce and bear offspring. Volcano pussy melt your Peter like ice could be saying that the instinct of a living creature to produce young is dangerous and could melt your Peter, which establishes the middle of the line as an idiom, should this be the case in which it is used. Melting one's Peter could be to cause a catastrophe very easily, like a volcano melting ice. It also may be alluding to the blowing of one's mind. Considering that the song's title contains the phrase "death heated," one can weigh the possibility of this being a play on the phrase "in heat" more than the other possibilities, and the pussy in question is not that of a human, and is also not that of a feline godlike entity. The word melt adds an interesting array of meanings to this before its time kind of rhyme. Burnett doesn't use any indicator as to whether or not this event is currently happening, being reflected upon, due to occur, or merely a potential outcome of the encounter with a volcano pussy. Melt is also a name given to a sandwich that contains a meat and a cheese, which has been heated up beyond the cheese's melting points. In order to keep this information consistent, one must cover the chances that the first three words, volcano pussy melt, are referring to a sandwich. Why the sandwich would be called as such will be pondered over later on in this section, but the striking parallelisms in the references to heat give this interpretation a hefty amount of legitimacy, which is better mentioned sooner than later. Before diving into the volcano pussy melt, the term melt must be covered in its usual usage, which is that of a verb referring to a change in physical state. To melt is to go from the state of being that as a solid to the state of being that as a liquid. Ice is frequently cited to melt and either produce water or condensation when a drink containing ice is left in a room at or above the average human body temperature. Due to how well known ice is for melting at warmer temperatures, it is understandable that Rice is probably using the term melt as an indicator for how easily the volcano pussy will change a Peter's state from a solid to a liquid. To say that a Peter's state can change to a liquid easily implies that a Peter is not a flammable substance, as one would likely burn into a gas before becoming a liquid. Thus, a peter is not a penis in this context. For a volcano to melt an object that is non-flammable could simply be stating that the current temperature of the pussy is above the melting point of the peter. Assuming that this claim is accurate, the volcano in question is most likely to be dormant and exposed to sunlight, which will indirectly cause the peter to melt as the surface of the pussy traps heat in its volcanic rock makeup. However, if the peter's melting point is above the average heat in the sun in regular daylight, the volcano pussy may still be active and dangerous. Now that the less likely explanation that melt refers to the act of changing state from solid to liquid has been introduced, it is imperative that the meaning of melt being that of a sandwich be explored, as it contains some very crucial evidence. As stated before, a melt as a food item contains a meat and a cheese which has been heated beyond its melting point. Both possible definitions of pussy can apply as some sort of meat product. However, one of these options involves cannibalism, which will lower the odds that that is the correct meaning for the meat in the sandwich. However, upon revisiting this idea, one must remember that MC Ride's lyrics are usually obscure, and many are known to cover odd and surreal topics, and thus cannibalism may not be entirely out of the question. The meat for this melt will either be that of an enormous volcanic cat god deity, a human female, or a regular non-human animal. If the volcano pussy melt contains the meat of a volcanic cat god deity, then the meat is obviously a stone. To eat a piece of volcanic rock nestled between two pieces of bread with a helping of molten cheese would be to mock the volcanic god deity, since the cheese stays molten while the lava solidifies relatively quickly. Also, this would change the line into two separate statements instead of one: volcano pussy melt and your Peter like ice. This does wonders for the philosophical analyst, as Ride could be purposefully removing punctuation from the statement as a jab at the system, whilst using apostrophe to speak to the volcano pussy from which the melt was made, saying to it that its Peter is like ice, or that its Peter likes ice, given that a particular dialect could be implemented into Ride's thought process while writing the line. Ride tells the volcano melt, and thus indirectly tells the volcanic cat god deity, that its Peter either likes ice or is similar to ice. To say that the volcano's Peter likes anything implies that the Peter is a sentient being that is being owned by a volcano, which may be rhetoric to say that the Peter inhabits the land, or perhaps that the Peter is bound to the land on the volcano. Peter, in this sense, might be a human being, who due to their living on a volcano most likely is fond of ice, as ice may be sparse in the area. Another perspective is that the Peter likes ice, which means that it is most likely sentient, and intelligent enough to do more than take up space and feed on the volcano pussy's natural resources. Again tossing punctuation to the wind like a true rebel, Ride may also be using volcano pussy melt as a comparison to some quality of himself or someone he knows, and then insults the person to whom he is referring by saying that either their Peter is like ice, or that their Peter is fond of ice, in the same context that it would be in the case that MC Ride is standing there eating a piece of volcanic rock in a sandwich, then telling it that its Peter either likes ice or is similar to ice. Despite how important this statement could be as a revolt against the established authority which prevents Ride from eating this sandwich, there are also other possibilities, such as that of the volcano pussy melt containing bread, cheese, and the meat of a human vagina. Ride may be giving a nod to cannibal tribes based on islands in this line, as he goes over the existence of there being a sandwich made of human genitals and cheese, not to be confused with the colloquial cheese that is produced from poorly maintained human genitals, and then proceeds to say, your Peter like ice. Giving this subtle tip of the hat may be giving the go-ahead to make this a readily available product in certain areas. However, this isn't very likely, because the human flesh doesn't defrost well. This is information which we can safely assume that MC Ride knows. Moving on to the potential that the volcano pussy melt is a sandwich with regular animal meat, it could be that a Peter is one's unique flavor palette, and that after eating a sandwich made from vagina, one would prefer to ingest some ice to recuperate or wash down the food. This may also be alluding to the urban legend that one who eats ice is sexually deprived, and that eating a sandwich made of vagina would appease the wants of one who is desperately unfulfilled. The most significant evidence to show that this line refers to a sandwich is that a melt requires heat, and the song's title is I Want It, I Need It, Death Heated. Also, there is the looming presence of a volcano pussy nearby, which confirms that the volcano pussy is referring to heat rather than magnitude and impact on the surrounding area. Now that all of this information has been established, the most difficult word to put into perspective in this line is the word Peter. A Peter is heavily referenced in the song, simply by being included in this line, but it has yet to reveal its true definition. Is a Peter a penis, a brain, a living sentient being, a flavor palette, a non-flammable object? This answer is the most difficult to come to, but it shall be dissected to the fullest extent of immediate capability. Should Peter be referring to a penis, the depth of this line may take a serious plunge, thus causing this essay to be all for naught. However, the possibility of that is little to none, as all of the prior investigation has built a powerful case against this. A volcano pussy melting a penis like ice is an understandable claim until one realizes that ice does not melt a penis in most real-life cases. For brevity, this case shall not be considered, as it is the least likely solution. A Peter may refer to the human brain, and to melt a Peter might be to blow one's mind, to stress one out, or to kill someone via brain damage. If a volcano pussy does any of these, the most likely causes would be as follows. To blow one's mind, a volcano pussy would merely have to exist, since most vaginas are not the size of a landmass, and most vaginas do not have the risk of spewing molten lava onto anything and everything in their immediate vicinity. Any living being who encounters an enormous vagina made out of igneous rock, and that may or may not be located miles beneath the surface of the ocean, would be pretty surprised, and perhaps there is a chance they would share it with the world. To stress one out would imply that the volcano pussy is too much information or danger for one to handle at the moment. To kill one via damage to the brain would imply that either the volcano pussy is a sentient being, or a dangerous mound of igneous rock that just so happens to be the size of a small mountain or an entire island. When considering the possibility that a Peter is a living, sentient being, one must take into consideration that they are most likely going to be killed by the act of melting. In this scenario, it is easy to deduce that this volcano pussy is either the volcano or the fiery god deity. However, the volcano pussy, if it is actually part of a sandwich, is not implied to directly be the Peter's cause of death, and the Peter, under these circumstances, would most likely die from being cold, your Peter like ice. One reality-questioning interpretation of the line is that the Peter is, in fact, being melted by ice. The grammatical syntax behind this claim is that the volcanic pussy melts your Peter in a manner similar to that of the manner in which ice melts your Peter. In the case that a Peter is a flavor palette, the only manner in which any of the possibilities make sense is that the volcano pussy is being spoken to directly about either the likes of its Peter or the fact that its Peter can be compared to ice. If it were an issue, perhaps Wright is giving the pussy an intervention, telling it in a blunt manner that either its Peter likes ice or that its Peter is similar to ice. How might the Peter, flavor palette, be similar to ice? It could be an adjective because its disposition is cold. However, it could be an intervention for a sex addict, saying that by chewing ice, the pussy is too sexually charged and needs to recognize that fact. Otherwise, it could be an insult to the volcano pussy as well. Lastly, it could be assumed that a Peter is a non-flammable object. This assumption is most likely correct because most flammable objects don't melt at a certain temperature. They catch fire. After reviewing this magnificent hip-hop line from an absolute genius in his field, I feel awful that it took such a toll on his creative process. After writing this line carefully and considerately, taking many hours, to days, to weeks, pondering the ultimate rebellious statement, metaphor, simile, apostrophe, comparison, and open-ended fact, Stephen Burnett achieved God status as a lyricist. Sadly, this line was the peak of his musical performance, and no Death Grip song has been as lyrically proverbial as this one. However, despite the tragic downfall of their musical quality, this line upholds an amazing legacy. Post-writing thoughts and review. After reading all the lyrics to the song, I came to the realization that the line is actually just about sex. Hey everyone, I'm not gonna make a habit of asking for likes, but I put a ton of effort into the writing and reading of this, whatever it is. If this video gets 50 likes, I'll return the favor by posting bloopers that happened during the reading. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.